Well, here we are, the Season 1 finale. If you're a new player and you've been following along since my GM Sniper 2 video, then consider this a little treat from me to you. For the season finale, I've decided to let you new players in on a little secret that not even a lot of old players know about. It's what I consider to be the best 300 cost general, and it can even hold its own in 350 and 400 cost matches as well. This bad boy is probably the one thing that Xeon actually did get right. Now, I didn't exactly see the Zaka 2 Fritz helmet in the best of light in the beginning, but that was before my time with the Alex. And just like with the Alex, the bazooka doesn't exactly go with it as well as one might think. I'm also not exactly a fan of the helmet shape either. Back then I preferred the Zaka 2 Kai instead since it had more range strength, and on some occasions I would use the Zaka 2 Type S with its level 3 melee priority. What separates the Fritz helmet from the other two is its level 2 emergency evasion system. At 300, it is one of only 2 generals that possess the skill, the other being the Guff VD. The difference between these two is that the Guff VD is meant a bit more for close range combat. The Fritz helmet, when equipped with the machine gun and grenade launcher, is more of a mid-range fighter. That's not to say that the Fritz helmet can't fight at close range. When you use the machine gun, it will come with its own grenade launcher. Combine that with the secondary Sturmfaust, both of which have relatively good swap speeds compared to a standard bazooka's cooldown rate in between shots, and it's like you actually have an even better bazooka for a secondary weapon. Going back to the level 2 emergency evasion system, since most players tend to think that the Guff VD is the only one with that skill, because they're used to seeing it more often, it will be easier for you to bait players into trying to melee you after the first dodge. Now, as I said earlier, the downside to using the Fritz helmet over the Zaka 2 Kai is that it has lower range strength, and unlike the Zaka 2 Type S, it doesn't have a level 3 melee priority. I'm here to tell you that that doesn't really matter when used properly. The Fritz helmet does have less range strength, but with the machine gun you will still be wearing down an enemy player. Most players also tend to back off when being shot in the face by machine gun fire. If the enemy player does decide to charge you while you're using your machine gun, remember that you have 2 dodge rolls and 2 secondary weapons that can stun faster than a regular bazooka. If it comes down to you having to use your own melee, despite not having level 3 melee priority, you actually have more melee strength than range, so you will still have that in your favor. Think of it like a boxer who tricks his opponent into thinking that his left side is his strong side, and then when the moment is right, surprises them with an attack from the right. At 300, the Zaka 2 Fritz helmet is the definition of a jack of all trades. So why don't you see this suit as often? Well, much like with the Alex, for new players back in the day, they tend to use the bazooka instead. Even when you see it out in the field, it's not used to the best of its abilities in most cases. Maybe once in a while a player would have figured out to use the machine gun instead, but those cases are still pretty rare for now. As a result, they tend to use other mobile suits instead. Keep in mind that any suit's performance is also based off of your knowledge of other suits in its specific cost range. If you know what the other team's mobile suits are capable of, then you should have an easier time predicting what they're going to try to do. The Fritz helmet gives you that little extra nanosecond of time to determine how your opponent is going to try to attack you. While its only rival as far as generals go in 300 is the Guff VD, for me the Fritz helmet comes out on top because it's not as squishy. The Guff VD can be fast and deadly at close range, but in most cases, it doesn't live long enough to cause the max amount of damage that it's capable of. Also, since it's meant more for close range, that means you would have to use up your thrusters more often compared to the Fritz helmet, and thus meaning that you won't really be able to use both of your dodge rolls. When using the Fritz helmet's machine gun, and really with any mobile suit and machine gun combination, remember that slow and steady wins the race. Some damage is better than no damage. True, it's not going to be as flashy as staggering and knocking them down, or stun locking them, but that little bit of continuous damage adds up. Keep in mind that if you rely on something like a bazooka, especially on bigger maps, that your success is largely dependent on your accuracy. Every miss costs you anywhere between 6 to 8 seconds, at least, of potentially causing damage to the other team. Add the latency and poor connectivity factors, and missing the shot with the bazooka can be the difference between life and death. The machine gun, on the other hand, causes little bits of damage on your opponent that causes them to hesitate for a split second. If you miss a shot, you still have some 30 rounds in the clip to keep firing. Once you run out of ammo, it doesn't take that long to reload. And with the 2 secondary weapons, you don't need a bazooka for close range because you basically are one giant walking bazooka with the machine gun in hand. In this way, you are more similar to the GM Code District type with its own machine gun and grenade launcher. However, you are a lot more mobile and have 2 instant stun capabilities instead of the Code District type's 1. Obviously, your competition increases once you move up to 350 and 400. But like I said, it can still hold its own using the same tactics I just described. Just keep in mind that it's important to be familiar with the mobile suits that your opponents are using as well. Lastly, everyone has slightly different playstyles, so what works for me or someone else may not work for you, and vice versa. This is more of an option for you to consider if you think you're currently struggling, or maybe you want to try something different. If this does work out for you and you end up really liking this form of playstyle, and you want to know if you can use this in other cost ranges, there are some ways you can do that. At 200, the Zakuto Type S handles in a similar way. No level 2 emergency evasion skill, Sturmfaust, or melee combo, but it does have a level 3 melee priority as stated earlier. At 250, there is a Zakuto Kai that handles a little closer to the Fritz helmet, -1 dodge roll, and Sturmfaust, and the Zakuto Kai might actually come out on top. As mentioned earlier, it does have more range strength. I consider this to be a safe and solid form of playstyle for cost ranges between 200 and 400. Now, if you really want to test your luck and carry this style over to 450 and above, there are 2 suits that come to mind that you can try out. The first is the High Mobility Zakuto late model. It's not as balanced as the Fritz helmet since it practically has no melee strength, but it makes up for it in having a lot of range strength as far as generals go. Most players tend to use it with the Friendly Fire Simplified Missile Launcher. If you see most of my videos, you know that I prefer to stay flexible instead of being one-dimensional with one weapon. And for me, the missile launcher actually prevents me from being flexible. The machine gun, on the other hand, although it's not as good as the Fritz helmet's machine gun, still packs a punch over time, since the increased range strength makes up for it. The High Mobility Zakuto late model is available between 400 and 500, which is actually a pretty good cost range for it. The second is the High Mobility Galguk. The Galguk is a little different, but it's as close as it gets, I think, to the Fritz helmet. Keep in mind, however, that at 450 there are a lot of mobile suits with similar skills, so don't expect to get the same results. You can try taking it into 550 and all the way to 650, but just know that the competition is a lot more intense. It will not be as easy as 500 and below. Add the fact that stun locking is a lot more prevalent in high cost matches. It's still possible with some skill and luck, but again, know what you're getting yourself into. I would say only use it in higher cost matches if the High Mobility Galguk is your favorite mobile suit and you know it like the back of your hand. On the plus side, at 550 and above, most mobile suits are focused on beam resistance, while you're primarily going to be using ballistics. Unless you use the Galguk beam rifle, of course. And with that, we've come to the end of the first season of this series. Don't worry, it's only a season finale, not a series finale, so there is still more to come. I will be releasing another video soon to give you all an update on the state of the channel, and when you can expect Season 2. As always, this has been Mobile Suit K9, signing off.